Sergeant Mara Kess moved through the tall red grass of Rathos 4, with the silent confidence of someone who had spent many years guiding new soldiers through dangerous lands. The afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the wide training expanse that stretched for kilometers in all directions. The land was quiet, too quiet for her liking, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Mara paused, checking the small tracker on her wrist. One signal blinked weaker than the others. Cadet Arlen Voss. Again, she exhaled slowly, not quite irritated but not surprised either. Arlen was smart and eager, but he had the habit of drifting away from his assigned route, usually because he got distracted by some strange plant or rock formation. For a xenobiology student, curiosity was good but not here. Not on Rathos 4, where some creatures preferred silence to warn their prey. Mara touched the side of her helmet. "Command, I'm going to retrieve Cadet Voss." His locators fluctuating. A brief burst of static answered before a calm voice replied. "Understood, Sergeant. Keep your channel open." Mara gripped her staff and began moving again. The grass brushed gently against her armored legs as she walked, the red strands shifting like liquid waves. She scanned the ground for any sign of recent movement. Arlen's boot prints were light. Uneven, he had probably been hurrying. She followed them toward a narrow ravine bordered by cracked stone and moss-like growth that shone faintly in the sun. She called out his name once, loud enough to echo off the stone walls. No answer. Mara frowned. Cadets loved to test limits, but even Arlen knew better than to hide during a drill. She checked her scanner again. His signal was definitely inside the ravine, but it flickered as if something was blocking it. She stepped carefully into the narrow space, her senses alert. The rocky walls rose around her, marking a natural path that dipped just enough to hide anything from view until the last second. A place like this was perfect for an ambush, nature or otherwise. Mara slowed her pace, her eyes narrowing as a faint sound reached her ears. Breathing. Light, shaky breathing. She found Arlen crouched behind a fallen chunk of stone, his hands pressed against his helmet as if trying to silence his own fear. He looked up when he sensed her presence, relief flooding his face. "Sergeant Kess," he whispered, as if speaking too loud would break something in the air. I think something's here." Mara knelt beside him. "What did you see?" "I didn't see anything," Arlen said shakily. "I felt it. The ground moved. I heard." He swallowed hard, scraping, like stone on stone. Mara listened. At first, there was nothing except the faint rustle of distant wind. Then she felt the vibration, a slow, pulsing tremor beneath her boots. Not natural. Too rhythmic. Too heavy. She grabbed Arlen's arm, gently but firmly. "On your feet. Stay behind me." Arlen obeyed, though she could feel him trembling. She positioned herself between him and the open center of the ravine, listening as the ground trembled again. Stronger this time. The dust near the far wall lifted into tiny clouds. The small stones around her boots rattled. Then, with a low rumble that cracked the silence, the ground split. The creature erupted upward in a spray of dirt and broken stone. It towered over them, its body armored with thick plates of chitin that gleamed like metal under the sunlight. 6 powerful limbs dug into the soil, stabilizing its massive form. Its head, wide and triangular, shifted as it released a low growl, vibrating more in the air than through sound. A Rathosian burrow beast. Mara didn't hesitate. "Run back toward the entrance," she ordered Arlen. "Do not stop." Arlen's panic threatened to freeze him, but her voice snapped him back to motion. He stumbled to his feet and scrambled toward the narrow exit. The beast's attention snapped toward the movement immediately. Its sensory frills extended, vibrating as it detected fleeing prey. Mara stepped into its line of sight, lifting her hands. "Hey, over here!" The beast lunged. Mara dodged sideways, rolling across the ground as one of its heavy forelimbs slammed down where she had stood. The shockwave threw dust into the air. She kept low, analyzing the creature. Burrow beasts were strong, fast, and heavily armored. But they had weaknesses, joint seams near the legs, and sensory frills that were vulnerable to pressure. She needed to keep it focused on her, and far from Arlen. The beast charged again. Mara jumped aside, feeling the rush of air as one of its limbs sliced through the space she had just vacated. She landed on her back but kicked hard against the ground, sliding beneath a hanging rock formation. The beast slammed into the stone, shaking loose pebbles that rained down like tiny bullets. Arlen reached the entrance and glanced back, torn between fear and the instinct to help. Mara shouted without looking. "Keep moving!" He obeyed, disappearing around the bend. Mara refocused on the beast. It lunged again, its armored plates clacking together like grinding stone. She grabbed a loose shard of rock and flung it at the creature's sensory frills. It didn't hurt the beast, but it stunned it for a moment, a small window, but enough. She sprinted toward a tall rock pillar, leaping onto a ledge halfway up. The beast followed, its claws scraping sparks against the stone. If she could get it to strike the pillar, the beast reared back, preparing to smash the entire formation. Mara pushed herself upward and rolled across the top of the rock. The moment she hit the ground on the other side, she was already moving. The beast struck the pillar, cracking it from base to tip with a deafening crunch. Mara didn't stop. She ran toward a second pillar, this one with a long, horizontal crack near its base. She could use that. She could make a trap. The beast charged after her, dangerously fast for its size. Mara slid beneath the cracked pillar, just as the beast lunged. She grabbed a sharp stone and wedged it into the crack, then kicked it with all her strength. The pillar groaned, dust falling like rain. The beast lunged, claws outstretched. Mara dove forward, rolling across the ground as the pillar finally broke. The massive stone chunk fell directly onto the creature's shoulder plates. The impact shook the ground, forcing a small grunt from the beast. It wasn't enough to kill it. Burrow beasts were too strong, but it slowed it down. Just enough. Mara sprang onto its back, grabbing hold of a ridge in its armor. The beast thrashed, trying to throw her off. She reached toward the edge of its sensory frill, applying pressure at just the right angle. The beast roared, not in pain, but in confusion. Its movements staggered, limbs scraping against the ground. Mara tightened her grip, pushing the frill harder. The beast dropped onto its side, its limbs kicking up dust. She held on with every ounce of strength as the creature writhed beneath her. She felt the venom in the air now, a faint chemical scent that made her vision blur. Burrow beasts released it when panicked, a defense mechanism. Mara pushed harder, ignoring the dizzying wave washing through her. The beast finally collapsed, its limbs falling still as its frill folded against its head in submission. She slid off its back, landing awkwardly on her knees. Her head spun. She reached for the support of a nearby rock, breathing heavily. Her vision dimmed, turning the world into a haze. She heard footsteps running, panicked. Arlen's voice echoed faintly. "Sergeant Kess. Mara." She tried to answer, but her voice felt stuck. The venom was stronger now. Her arms felt heavy. She managed a slow breath before darkness crept into the edges of her vision. Arlen knelt beside her. "Stay awake! The drones are coming!" She felt his hand on her shoulder, shaking her gently. She wanted to tell him she was fine, that he had done well, that he wasn't in danger anymore. But the words wouldn't come. The world faded, first into shadows, then into nothing. The last sound she heard was the distant hum of emergency drones racing toward them. Mara woke slowly, as if rising through deep water. At first, she felt only warmth and a soft pressure around her arms and chest. A faint hum touched her ears, steady and calm, like a machine breathing beside her. She blinked, trying to bring the blurry world into focus. White lights, ceiling tiles, a sterile scent she recognized immediately: the Academy Infirmary. Her throat felt dry when she tried to speak. She turned her head slightly, and a gentle voice answered from somewhere nearby. "You're awake. Good. Don't move too quickly." Mara exhaled softly. She recognized that voice, Medic Halden. He stepped into view, a slim man with tired eyes and a calm expression that never seemed to change, no matter how chaotic things became. "How long?" she whispered. About 12 hours, Halden replied, adjusting the drip connected to her arm. You were exposed to a concentrated dose of burrow beast defensive venom. I had to monitor your breathing through most of the night. Mara tried to sit up, but Halden shook his head. Slowly. You're stable, but you're not strong enough to stand. She relaxed back onto the pillow. The faint pressure she had felt turned out to be layers of regenerative mesh wrapped around her ribs and arms. Her muscles ached, but not sharply, just a heavy, tired ache, as if her own body had been working twice as hard as normal. Her eyes scanned the room. It was clean, bright, and quiet. She frowned. Where is Cadet Voss? He's fine, Halden said quickly, sensing her worry. He stayed here for hours after the drones brought you in. Barely left your bedside until the officers ordered him to rest. Mara let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Halden hesitated before adding, He's waiting outside. They won't let him come in yet. She frowned again. They? Halden glanced toward the door, something uneasy flickering in his eyes. I'm not supposed to discuss that part. Just rest a moment. Mara's instincts sharpened. She wasn't new to this. Halden didn't look nervous often. For him to hide something meant it was serious. She turned slowly, testing her muscles, and looked at the door. Two silhouettes stood directly outside, one on each side of the entrance. She could see their shapes through the frosted glass, tall, armored, unmoving. Academy Guardians. Why were Guardians stationed at her door? Her pulse quickened slightly, and Halden noticed immediately. Sergeant, he said softly, don't jump to conclusions. They're just precautions. Precautions for what? Her voice was still weak, but her tone carried steel. Halden opened his mouth, then closed it as if choosing his words carefully. There are effects from the venom that we don't fully understand. The Academy wants to be sure you're safe, that everyone is safe. Mara stared at him. You think I'm a threat? No, Halden answered firmly. I don't, but I don't make the rules. She lay back, looking at the ceiling again. Guardians usually guarded dangerous creatures, high-value secrets, or hostile suspects, not injured instructors lying in a hospital bed. Something wasn't right. She closed her eyes briefly, remembering the beast. Its strange behavior, its speed, the way it had moved with purpose, not instinct, and the faint metallic shine she had noticed near its head before everything had blurred. Halden stepped away, giving her space, but she heard the door slide open moments later. Light footsteps entered. She didn't need to look to know someone important had arrived. Mara Kess, a deep, composed voice said, It's good to see you awake. She opened her eyes to find Admiral Solene Arctos standing beside her bed, the Academy commander herself. She was tall, with silver-streaked black hair tied neatly behind her head and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her uniform was immaculate as always. Mara tried to sit up again, but the Admiral raised a hand. Stay as you are, Sergeant. Mara lowered herself carefully. Admiral, she said quietly, what happened to the beast? It was neutralized after your engagement, Admiral Arctos said. Your actions saved Cadet Voss's life, and likely your entire unit. She paused before adding, You fought with remarkable skill. Mara wasn't interested in praise, not now. Why the guards? Why am I being watched? The Admiral's expression stayed calm, but her eyes darkened slightly. Because the situation is more complicated than we first believed. The creature you encountered wasn't behaving like a standard burrow beast. Its patterns were unpredictable. Its aggression was unusual, and its physiology showed. She hesitated. Something rare for her. Anomalies. What kind of anomalies? Admiral Arctos took a seat beside the bed, folding her hands calmly. We won't know the full details until the analysis is complete. But early scans show foreign material embedded near its neural structure. Mara felt her pulse slow, her instincts sharpening. Foreign material, she repeated softly. Like a device? Halden shifted uncomfortably in the corner. The Admiral nodded once. We suspect tampering. Possibly technological interference. The Lorge. Mara closed her eyes for a moment. She had guessed as much the instant she saw the metallic glint near the beast's head. But hearing it confirmed sent a cold wave of realization through her. Someone had modified a wild predator, someone had used it as a weapon, and she and her cadets had walked directly into the middle of it. The Admiral studied her face. "You aren't surprised." "I saw something," Mara admitted, "before I blacked out. A metal shine on its frill. It didn't look natural." "We found it," the Admiral said quietly. "And it's not local. It's far more advanced than anything native to this planet." Mara processed this in silence. Then the Admiral leaned slightly closer. "Now you understand why we need the Guardians at your door." "Now," Mara opened her eyes. "No. I understand why you're protecting the building. Not why you're guarding me." The Admiral offered a small, brief sigh. "Because you were exposed to a large dose of venom. And because the device found on the creature emits a frequency we haven't identified yet. Until we confirm there are no lingering effects, environmental or neurological, we have to treat all variables carefully." Mara stared at her. "You think the beast's implant could have infected me? We don't know, and we can't take chances." Mara clenched her jaw. "So I'm a variable, a valued one," the Admiral replied. "But yes." The room fell quiet. A soft buzz sounded at the doorway, followed by the voice of a guardian. "Commander, the cadet is requesting permission to enter." "Arlen." The Admiral glanced at Mara. "If you're willing, I can allow it." Mara nodded. "Let him in." The door opened, and Cadet Arlen Voss stepped inside. His uniform was wrinkled, eyes tired, hair messy as if he had run his hands through it too many times. When he saw Mara awake, his face lit with relief. "Sergeant," he breathed, rushing forward until the Admiral raised a hand, reminding him of boundaries. He stopped just short of the bed. "You're all right," he said softly. I mean they said you were in bad condition." Mara managed a faint smile. "I've been worse." Arlen looked at her wrapped torso, then down at his hands. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gone off route. If I had—" "Arlen," Mara interrupted gently. "You survived. That's what matters." She studied him closely. "What happened after I passed out?" Arlen took a breath, gathering his thoughts. "The drones arrived within minutes. They lifted you out and scanned for nearby threats. They said the beast was reacting strangely, like it was receiving signals even after it fell. They had to secure the entire ravine." He swallowed. "They wouldn't let me follow the drone to the infirmary. I tried, but they ordered me back to base. I waited in the hallway outside this room all night." Mara felt a faint warmth of gratitude, though she didn't show it openly. Arlen was a good kid. Nervous, curious, but loyal. The Admiral stood. "Cadet Voss, please step forward. Your full testimony is required." Arlen blinked. "My testimony?" "You were the only witness besides Sergeant Kess," Admiral Arctos said. "Your observations may help us understand what happened." Arlen nodded, stepping closer. 2 Guardians recorded everything silently. Arlen described the tremors he had felt before the beast appeared, the strange scraping sound, and the way the ground seemed to shift unnaturally. He explained the creature's behavior, that it didn't attack immediately, but seemed to pause, as if waiting for something. Mara listened carefully. Then Arlen said something that made her sit straighter. "When it looked at me," Arlen said, "it wasn't wild. Its eyes focused in a straight line, like it was following an instruction." The Admiral exchanged a quick, subtle glance with Halden. Mara's heart beat slower. Colder. This wasn't random. It was planned. When Arlen finished speaking, the Admiral dismissed him gently. "Your information is helpful. Return to your quarters for now. You will be contacted if we need more." Arlen looked at Mara one last time. "Get better soon." When he left, the room felt heavier. The Admiral faced Mara again. "You understand why this situation is delicate?" "Yes," Mara said quietly. "Someone sent that creature. And it wasn't just a test of a device. It was a test of us." The Admiral didn't deny it. She only said, "Rest for now. When your strength returns, we'll talk again." There's more happening on Rothos 4 than we realized. When she left the room, the Guardians remained, silent, unmoving, watching. Mara closed her eyes, her thoughts racing. Something on this planet had changed, and whoever was behind it now knew she had survived, and that meant danger was already on its way. Mara woke the next morning feeling stronger, though her muscles still ached in a slow, dull way. The regenerative mesh had done its job well. The lights over her bed were dimmer now, set to the gentler settings used for patients who needed calm. For a few seconds, she lay quietly, listening to the hum of machines around her. The Guardians were still outside. She could sense their presence even without looking. She shifted slightly and looked toward the door. Movement passed on the other side of the frosted glass. Voices murmured. Someone was approaching. A soft alert chimed above her bed. The door slid open, and Admiral Arctos stepped inside again. But she wasn't alone. Two specialists in research uniforms followed behind her, each holding a data tablet with holographic diagrams hovering over the screens. Mara sat up with care. More tests? In part, the Admiral replied calmly. But that can wait. There is someone else who needs to speak with you. As she moved aside, Cadet Arlen Voss entered the room. He looked less exhausted than before, though still a little pale. His hands were clasped behind his back in a formal posture, though his eyes quickly softened when he saw Mara awake and sitting. Mara, he breathed with relief. I mean, Sergeant. You look better today. She nodded. I feel better. Thank you. Admiral Arctos gestured toward a chair near the bed. Cadet Voss, please sit. You're here to give a more detailed account of what you witnessed. Arlen nodded nervously and sat, resting his hands on his knees. The Admiral turned to Mara. Sergeant Kess, this is not only for record. We believe his memory holds clues about the creature's behavior. Your perspective may help us interpret his words correctly. Mara nodded once. All right. Arlen took a deep breath, gathering himself. He paused, his eyes drifting to the floor as he recalled the events. I remember feeling the ground vibrate at first. Not like normal tremors, but more like signals. Short, steady, not random. He looked up at Mara. At first, I thought it was my scanner malfunctioning. Mara frowned slightly. You didn't report the tremors? I tried, Arlen said, sounding embarrassed. But the signal kept dropping. And then, the scraping sound began. One of the research specialists leaned forward. Scraping? Describe it. Arlen nodded. It sounded like stone dragging across stone, but it wasn't loud. It echoed strangely inside the ravine. And then, everything became quiet. Unnaturally quiet. Mara remembered that moment well. The silence that felt like the world had paused. Arlen continued. When I looked around, I didn't see anything, but I felt watched. Not in the natural predator way, more like something analyzing me. To how? The Admiral's eyes narrowed slightly. Analyzing? Arlen nodded. It's hard to describe. When the beast came out of the ground, it didn't attack immediately. It just looked at me. Its head tilted in a slow, steady way, like it was focusing or adjusting. The researcher tapped quickly on their tablet. Just as you recorded earlier, uncommon for the species. Arlen swallowed. And its eyes. I don't know. I've studied enough xenobiology to know the normal patterns of native creatures. This one didn't match. It wasn't reacting instinctively. It felt like it was waiting for a signal. Mara exchanged a glance with the Admiral. She had suspected the same thing, but hearing Arlen say it made her thoughts even clearer. Arctos stepped closer to Arlen. What about the metallic shine you mentioned earlier? Did you see it before or after the beast surfaced? Arlen shook his head. I didn't see anything like that before the attack. Only after it started chasing me. When it turned its head at one point, something near the side reflected the sunlight for a second. That would be the implant, the researcher said quietly. Mara leaned forward slightly. Arlen, you said it watched you first. But when I moved into view, it immediately came after me instead. Did it switch targets? Arlen nodded quickly. Yes, exactly. When you shouted, its attention snapped away from me, not gradually, instantly, like a command changed. A heavy silence filled the room. Admiral Arctos stepped back, folding her arms thoughtfully. This supports our theory. The creature was influenced, if not controlled, by an outside source. The other researcher projected a small hologram above their tablet. It showed a simplified diagram of the burrow beast's skull, with a bright point marking the implant's location. We've run preliminary scans, the researcher explained. This device was embedded near the sensory center, not the motor center. That means it wasn't forcing movement, it was shaping perception. Mara frowned. Meaning someone wasn't steering the creature like a drone, the researcher said. They were influencing what it noticed, what it cared about, what it prioritized. Whoever placed the device allowed the beast to remain mostly natural, but redirected its instincts toward specific targets. Arlen's eyes widened. Like me. Like any cadet in that ravine, the Admiral corrected. But when Sergeant Kess intervened, the creature responded as if she were the new target. Mara's jaw tightened. It explained the way the beast moved, the unnatural focus, the strange pause when it first looked at Arlen. Someone had used the creature to test targeted aggression. She asked, "Any idea who could have done this?" The room went still. The researchers exchanged a glance but didn't speak. Instead, they stepped aside, allowing the Admiral to address the question herself. Arctos exhaled slowly. "We have theories, none of them comforting." Mara waited, but the Admiral didn't elaborate. Instead, Admiral Arctos turned to Arlen again. "Cadet Voss, we appreciate your cooperation. You may return to your quarters for now, but expect to be contacted again." Arlen stood quickly. "Yes, Admiral." He turned to Mara. "I'm glad you're recovering." Mara gave a faint nod. "You did well." A small smile formed on Arlen's face before he left the room, escorted gently by one of the guardians. When the door closed, the Admiral's expression changed. It became more serious, quieter, almost cautious. "What we are about to discuss must stay within this room," she said. The researchers nodded, stepping closer. Mara straightened slightly. "I'm listening." The Admiral tapped on a control panel, activating a sound-shielding field. "Mara," she began. "We analyzed the device thoroughly. And what we found does not match any known technology inside Academy jurisdiction." Mara's brow furrowed. "So it's off-world?" "Yes," Arctos answered. "But more importantly, it's old. Very old. The materials used haven't been manufactured in decades. Possibly longer." Mara's confusion deepened. "Then how did it get here? Rathos 4 wasn't even colonized until 5 years ago." "That," the Admiral said, "is the question." The researcher to her right projected another hologram, this time showing a map of Rathos 4. Several blinking points appeared across the terrain. "These are energy signatures we detected after the beast was scanned. They match faint variations of the device's frequency." Voling 4. Mara counted at least 6 markers. 6. Her chest tightened. "There are more?" "Possibly many more," the researcher said. "Awakened or dormant. We can't be sure." Mara clenched the edge of her blanket unconsciously. "You're saying this wasn't an isolated event?" The Admiral looked straight at her. "We believe Rathos 4 may have been used as a testing ground long before the Academy arrived. Someone left these devices behind. Someone with enough knowledge of native ecosystems to manipulate them." Mara's thoughts raced. "But why activate them now?" "We don't know," Arctos admitted. "But your encounter happened exactly when you and your cadets entered the ravine. The timing is too precise to be coincidence." The guardians outside shifted slightly, their silhouettes still visible through the frosted glass. Mara suddenly understood. "You think the person or group responsible realized the Academy was training near their devices, and they triggered one to see how we'd respond." The Admiral didn't confirm or deny the guess. But her silence was answer enough. Mara's muscles tightened. She had faced many threats in her life. But this felt different, like something hidden beneath the surface. waiting to rise. "What do you need from me?" she asked. The Admiral stepped closer. "First, rest fully. Your body is healing but not complete. Second, we need your perspective once more. Data comes in. You fought the creature directly. You understand its movement patterns and reactions better than any scanner." Mara nodded, feeling the responsibility settle onto her shoulders. "And third," the Admiral added quietly, "we must prepare for what comes next. Because I don't believe the attack on you and Cadet Voss was the final move." The last words lingered in the air. Mara felt the truth of them, deeply. Something or someone was hiding on Rathos 4, and they now knew Marrakes was alive, which meant the next step would not be a test. It would be a warning. Mara spent the next day recovering her strength. She walked short laps around her room, stretching her arms and legs, letting her muscles remember how to move again. The Guardians still stood outside the door, silent as statues, but their presence no longer felt threatening. If anything, it felt like the Academy wanted to make sure nothing unexpected reached her. By late afternoon, a soft chime echoed through her room. The door opened, and Admiral Arctos entered with a steady, purposeful step. There was no hesitation in her eyes this time. Something had changed. "Mara," the Admiral said, "we're moving to the next stage. We've scanned the planet again, and the signals linked to the implants are becoming clearer." Mara's attention sharpened immediately. "You found the source?" "We believe so," Arctos answered. "The origin seems to come from an abandoned listening post on the western edge of the training zone. It was built decades ago during early exploration missions, long before the Academy established anything here." Mara stared at her. "But this planet was listed as untouched before we arrived." The Admiral gave a short nod. "That was our understanding too. But the records show that a small research group once studied the planet's ecosystem. Their work was classified, then erased from official files. We only discovered the name of the station by accident, while scanning for the device's frequency." Mara's jaw tightened. Someone hid the truth. "Possibly," Admiral Arctos agreed. "And whatever they were doing here, it was never meant to become public." Mara stepped away from the bed, testing her balance. She was still sore, but she could stand. She could walk. She was ready. "What do you need me to do?" she asked quietly. The Admiral looked at her with a measured expression. "Join a small investigation team. You know the terrain. You understand the creature's behavior. And you've already survived direct exposure to one of the modified animals. Your insight could save lives." Mara nodded without hesitation. "I'll go." Admiral Arctos allowed a hint of approval to show. "Good. Gear up. We leave in 1 hour." The Academy's transport flew low above the rocky plains of Rathos 4, carrying Mara, Admiral Arctos, and a team of 4 specialists. Arlen was not part of the mission, though he had asked to join. The Admiral refused, not out of doubt, but out of caution. This mission needed trained personnel, not cadets still recovering from shock. Mara sat by the side window, watching the landscape move beneath them. The reddish grass swayed in the wind. The cracked stone ridges rose like broken walls from ancient ruins. Everything seemed calm, but she knew better now. Calm did not mean safe. One of the specialists, a woman named Lyra, approached her. "Sergeant, I heard about what you did in the ravine." Her tone held respect. Not many people could face a burrow beast with no heavy weapon. "It wasn't a choice," Mara replied simply. "Cadet Voss was in danger." Lyra smiled slightly. "Even so, the Academy is talking about it. You've made quite a reputation." Mara didn't respond. Reputation wasn't her goal. Survival was. The transport slowed as they neared a rocky plateau. Beneath it sat a structure half buried under soil and dust. Time had coated it like a forgotten relic. Metal beams poked through the ground, rusted but still recognizable. A small tower stood beside it, long inactive. The old listening station. "Teams," Admiral Arctos said, standing near the exit ramp. "Stay alert. No assumptions, no risks. If anything feels wrong, report immediately." When the ramp lowered, a cold wind swept through, carrying the faint smell of dry earth. Mara stepped out, her boots crunching against gravel. Even the wind sounded different here, as if the station still whispered secrets from the past. The group approached the entrance. It was sealed by a heavy metallic door, scratched and worn. Lyra placed a scanner against it. "Power signatures behind the panel," she announced. "But minimal. Something is still running inside." "That shouldn't be possible after decades," another specialist muttered. Mara's eyes narrowed. "Unless someone returned recently," the Admiral nodded. "Open it." Lyra bypassed the lock in seconds. The door slid open with a tired groan. A thin cloud of dust drifted outward. Inside, the station was dim and silent. Faded panels lined the walls. Wires hung loosely from the ceiling. It looked abandoned, but not destroyed. Almost like someone had left in a hurry. The lights flickered on as they stepped forward. Mara scanned the space carefully. This place was used for observation, not combat. Whoever worked here studied something. Arctos agreed. The original research group focused on behavioral responses in native species. But that was all the file said. Until someone shut it down, Mara added. They reached a large chamber at the center. Here, the signs of recent activity were unmistakable. Dust had been cleared from the floor. A small console was active, humming faintly. Tools were scattered across a table, and in the center stood a metal crate, half open. Inside the crate was another burrow beast implant. But this one was different, sleek, complete, undamaged. New. The room fell quiet. Admiral Arctos stepped closer. "So this is where they built them?" "No," Mara said softly. "This is where they left them." She pointed at the console. A faint, blinking light pulsed across its screen, forming a pattern. A message. The specialist tapped a sequence of buttons, decoding the signal. A short log entry played through the speakers. The voice old and distorted. "Testing incomplete. Abandoned due to instability. Creatures too responsive. Implants removed. Station sealed. Returning later." 40-eyed. The recording ended. Mara frowned. They abandoned the project. But someone must have come back and reactivated it. Arctos turned toward one of the specialists. "Check the logs. How recent is the activation?" Lyra scanned quickly. Her eyes widened. 3 days ago. The same day Mara's team entered the training expanse. Before anyone could speak, a sudden vibration shook the floor lightly. Not strong. Not dangerous. But enough to silence everyone. Mara stiffened. She knew that vibration. She had felt it in the ravine. The others looked at her. "That's the same frequency the creature made," she said, stepping toward the hallway. "Something outside is responding." They moved cautiously to the station entrance. The wind had grown quieter, as if waiting. The ground beneath the plateau trembled again slightly, but unmistakably. Lyra checked her scanner. "Multiple signals. They're waking up." "How many?" Arctos demanded. 8. No, 12. Some are weak, some strong. They're spread in a wide circle around us. Mara's breath steadied. She wasn't afraid, but she was alert. "They aren't converging," she said after a moment. "This isn't an attack. They're reacting to something else." The Admiral understood instantly. "The activation. Whoever reactivated the system 3 days ago," Mara said slowly, "set something in motion. And the signals we're sensing now, they're not commands. They're echoes. Like an old machine finishing its last cycle." Lyra nodded. "Meaning the implants are activating themselves. Not because someone is controlling them. Because they're failing." Mara exhaled. So it wasn't an enemy pushing buttons. It was a forgotten experiment collapsing. The creatures weren't weapons. They were side effects. Arctos turned to Mara. "Your encounter triggered our investigation before these failures spread further. If another team had walked into those zones unprepared." Mara nodded. "There would have been injuries. Or worse." The Admiral placed a hand on her shoulder. "You saved more than a cadet that day." But Mara shook her head. "I only reacted. Anyone would have." "No," Arctos corrected gently. "Not anyone." The vibration outside began to lessen as the frequencies faded. The signals weakened. Lyra checked her scanner again. "They're shutting down," she announced. "The implants are losing power. Whatever was left in the station must be the last echo." Mara looked back at the crate containing the untouched implant. "What will you do with all of this?" "Dismantle it," Arctos said. "Every device, every record. This planet will not carry someone else's forgotten mistakes." Mara agreed. The team gathered the data, cleared the station, and prepared to return to the transport. As they walked outside, the wind picked up again. This time, it felt normal, natural, like the planet was letting out a breath it had been holding for years. Mara paused at the edge of the plateau, looking across the plains. The land seemed calmer now. A red horizon stretching far into the distance. Arctos joined her. "You did well, Sergeant." Mara gave a small nod. "What will happen to Rathos 4 now?" "It will continue its role as a training world," the Admiral said, "but with new safety scans. And new respect." Mara looked down at her hands, still bandaged but strong. "Good." The Admiral looked at her thoughtfully. "And you, Mara? What comes next for you?" Mara let out a small breath. "Back to teaching. Back to training cadets." Arctos smiled faintly. "I thought you might say that." They headed toward the transport, the Guardians walking beside them not as watchers now, but as escort. As Mara stepped aboard, she glanced once more at the land behind her. She remembered the trembling ground, the creature's focused eyes, the rage of survival. The cadet she pulled back from fear. Rathos 4 had tested her, and she had answered, not with fear, but with strength. And now, as the transport lifted from the plateau, she felt something new rising inside her. Not pride, not relief, purpose. She survived to protect others, and she would keep doing it no matter what strange secrets the frontier held next.